Hello everyone. Welcome to our second session this summer of Getting to Know You. We are having summer school for June, July, and August. So this is session 2, as I said. We had some residents suggest that rather than only new residents or new staff, let's have some more experienced residents to share their stories with us. And so that's what we're doing today. I'm real excited about our lineup. We are going to have Ella and Carl Thaler from our Cottage area. Ella and Carl have been with us here at Still Hopes since 2016. Then we're also going to have Jerry Dale and Ben Gamark, who have also been residents here with us since 2016, and they live in the Building 5 Trinity building. And then as a special guest as well, we will have our chaplain, Father Rich Crozier, who will share some personal things about himself. So just very excited to have everyone. Welcome, sit back and enjoy.
We're the Thalers. I'm Carl, and this is Ella. And Tacey mentioned that we were experienced residents. I'm happy to say that we're experienced, not the older residents. I was afraid she was going to introduce us with that. But we've been here in Still Hopes as residents since 2016. It's been about 4.5 years now. And both of us are Yankees. We're both from originally from Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia, and Ella's from the coal region of Pennsylvania. Well, it's interesting. When I got out of high school, I went and joined the Army right away, right out the week after high school. Spent 3 years in the Army as a medic. And an interesting story there is one of my first person to be my boss was Frank Wyman, who was a resident here at Still Hopes. He's a physician. And it wasn't until 50, 60 years later, while we were at a Christmas party, we were just talking, and he mentioned he had been at the same place I was in Germany. And so that was kind of interesting. Just goes to show you about being a small world. Then I got out of the Army, went to nursing school. That's where I met Ella. I went to a psychiatric hospital, a nursing school there, and that's where we met, in the psychiatric hospital. I'll let you figure out which one might have been the patient and which one was the...
On the geriatric unit, no less.
Yes, exactly. And then after nursing school, I went back into the Army and spent 23 additional years there. So we've done traveling through Germany, to a lot of time here in South Carolina. Went to San Antonio, 1 year in Washington, D.C., and I spent a year in Vietnam. And which was really kind of a blessing in that we've only been separated for 1 year. And it was a lot harder on Ella than it was on me. Even though I was in Vietnam, I was in a very secure place, but Ella was thankfully living with her parents, so I didn't really worry about her. Knew that she was being well taken care of. And then after I got out of the Army, which was in 89, I got retired from the Army. Then I went to work for the South Carolina Hospital Association as a risk management consultant. And then we ended up here in Still Hopes. The military brought us to South Carolina. I served over 26 years in the Army, and my last assignment was here at Fort Jackson. Our children are living here, our grandchildren are living here, so this was obviously the place for us to retire. And so we've been living here ever since, at least over 30 years in Columbia. So we feel like Southerners now. We even enjoy sweet tea occasionally. One of the things I spent a lot of time prior to the pandemic was working at the VA hospital. I would volunteer 2 days a week at the VA, helping veterans file their claims for disability. But then in March, when everything else happened, they said no volunteers at the hospital, so haven't been back there since. But Ella's very involved with Daughters of the American Revolution. So that's another thing that she's using her spare time with. But I'm going to let Ella go ahead and continue with what she has to say, which I have no idea what it is.
Well, I thought you were going to tell more about your childhood and stuff. So anyway, I'll fill in a little bit. This is mostly about me. I was born in a small coal mining community in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. I'm the oldest of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls. My maiden name is Sterling, a Scots-Irish name, but with Pennsylvania Dutch blood running in my veins. A relative emigrated from Germany in the early 1700s into the farming communities of Pennsylvania, and after taking an oath of loyalty to America, he fought for his new country in the American Revolution. In my small coal mining community, there was included a Lutheran church, which my grandfather helped to build. We attended faithfully and where I played the organ for many years. Carl and I were married there, and my siblings and my cousins still attend services there. My youth was spent in a time and space that allowed much freedom to roam and explore. Our only warning when we went outside was to not go near the mine shafts and not play on the railroad tracks. Our next-door neighbor's daughter was a stewardess for Pan American Airlines, and I longed to become just like her, mostly because I loved her uniform. I learned, although to my chagrin, that I was too short to qualify for that position. After some research, Charlie, I learned that Pan American liked their stewardesses to be nurses, and that changed my initial career goal. I decided that they would overlook my short stature if I were a nurse. But since at that time they did not hire married women, while I was in nursing school, I met Carl Failer, a slick city boy from Philadelphia. And that ended my desire to wear a Pan American Airlines uniform. I had no idea then how much flying I would do over the next 50+ years. I know many of you think I live in the arts and crafts room on Main Street. The secret is that I love to sew and create things. I learned to sew in 4th grade. One of my teachers insisted we girls learn to make things by hand, and the first few items I made were all done using hand stitching. My mother and a friend decided to encourage us in sewing through 4-H, and sewing became my joy. Over the years, I've made almost everything and anything that you can imagine, from preemie baby clothing to soft-sided luggage. Included in that was sleeping bags to be used when we backpacked with our 2 sons. I've worn out several sewing machines in the process, and yes, even Carl has sported an item or 2. But I also love to swim, ride bikes, which you occasionally can see here on campus, play the piano, and sing. I'm grateful for my parents' sacrifice in playing for piano lessons. I never would enjoy playing classics, but I love playing hymns and show tunes. They satisfy my soul. I love the Lord, love learning Bible and leading Bible studies. I love Still Hopes and my friends here, and I'm just so grateful that the Lord allows us to live here. Thank you.
Well, Ella just told you part of her story, just a small part. There are a lot of things that she left out, and she's poking me now not to say it, but there are a lot of things that Ella's been involved in. We started coming to Still Hopes back in 2012 when Ella was interested in swimming indoors, finding an indoor swimming pool, and we couldn't find any in Columbia other than here at Still Hopes. So then, as a result of that, Ella was the first and only resident to participate in the Still Hopes triathlon team. And she has a lot of other things that she's done. She's a pilot, a private pilot, has her private pilot's license. She's jumped out of airplanes. There is not much that Ella hasn't done or tried. And we're so thankful to be residents here at Still Hopes. We've enjoyed our time here, even during this pandemic period, and we appreciate the staff and everything that they do for us. Thank you.
We both grew up in Texas and graduated from Rice University in Houston. I majored in history. Ben studied chemistry. Rice is a small school in Texas, but we didn't meet there. We were matched up in the wedding party of mutual friends back in 1959. We've been married 61 years.
After graduating from Rice, I served in the Navy for 2 years, then moved to Evanston, Illinois, where I worked towards a PhD in theoretical physical chemistry.
We married after I graduated from Rice and at the end of Ben's first year in graduate school. I moved to Evanston and entered the university to get a master's degree in history at Northwestern.
After receiving my PhD, we moved to Baltimore, where for 2 years I was a postdoctoral research fellow and lecturer in chemistry at Johns Hopkins University. Next, I accepted a faculty position at Georgia Tech, but after 2 years in Atlanta, I recognized the opportunities for chemistry at the University of South Carolina. So we moved to Columbia in 1966. At USC, I taught large sections of general chemistry, small classes at the graduate level. I did my research in applications of quantum mechanics to problems of molecular structure and reactivity. Some of those I published in my book on qualitative molecular orbital theory. I was the chairman of my department for 2 different terms and retired in the year 2000.
In Columbia, I began a career in public health. I started as executive director of Planned Parenthood in a very unusual way. Kay Hamball, who was on the board of Planned Parenthood at that time, called me up in Carcassonne, France, and offered me the job. This was a big surprise since I hadn't applied for it and didn't know anything about the organization, but I said, why not? After that, I after my stint at Planned Parenthood, I joined the Department of Health and Environmental Control for 20 years and had a wonderful time because I worked in various parts of the agency: maternal and child health, epidemiology, environmental control, and health regulations. It was always something new and interesting was going on. After retiring from DHEC in 2000, I joined the University of South Carolina's Arnold School of Public Health, where I was administering some grants that I'd written.
When we first met, we discovered we shared many common interests, including art and music. We've been collecting art since that first year of our marriage. In every city where we've lived, we've always subscribed to the local classical music series and become members of the local art museum. I've served on the board of the Columbia Museum of Art, and for 35 years I've been a member of the Collections Committee that reviews everything that goes into or comes out of the museum's permanent collection.
And I was a part of a group that helped the Columbia Museum establish Friends of African American Art and Culture, known affectionately as FAAC, to have a significant outreach to the African American community and those interested in African American art. I got to know a number of African American artists who I consider good friends and amazing artists, as well as collectors from around the state. For our service to the museum, we were jointly awarded the Richard Kraft Leadership Award in 2011. We've been supporters of chamber music programs at USC School of Music and also at the Columbia Museum. And in fact, for 45 years, we've been part of a small group of friends who have had 5 concerts of chamber music a year in our homes, followed by potluck dinner.
Professional and business travels have expanded our experience. My sabbatical leaves gave us the opportunity to live in Princeton, New Jersey for a year and in San Francisco for 2 months. For 6 months, we lived in Zagreb, Croatia, where I did research at a national research institute, returning twice for 1 month stays.
As the trailing spouse for all these moves, I've had to learn to adapt and find my way while Benjamin was busy and concentrating on his research and having a wonderful time being by himself. The biggest challenge was living in Croatia, where I had to learn their language, the Croatian language, which is full of consonants and practically no vowels and no English cognates. Every little word I got in my head had to be just hammered in.
We owned a house in the historic district of Charleston for 23 years. While we were both working, it was a weekend getaway, only 2 hours from Columbia. But in retirement, we were able to stay longer. We loved introducing guests from everywhere, picnics in our small walled back garden, long walks through the city, dining at great restaurants within walking distance of our house, but perhaps most of all, completely submerging ourselves in the annual Spoleto Festival of Music and Art.
Still Hopes is our 4th residence in the Columbia area. When we first moved to Columbia, we had an apartment in the Senate Plaza directly across from the Taylor House that was then the Columbia Museum of Art. After about a year and a half there, we moved to an apartment at the top floor of the Woodrow Wilson Boyhood Home, where we lived longer than Woodrow Wilson did. We wanted them to change the plaque in front, but they didn't. Then in 1972, we bought a house on Watery Avenue in the Wales Garden area. It would be our home for the next 44 years. We had wonderful neighbors, and Ben could walk to and from the office every day. He felt like it was a small college town, being able to walk to and from with such ease. A number of Still Hopes residents have lived at one time or another on Watery Avenue, and I love to hear their stories about the street at that time.
One of my activities over the last 45 years has been baking bread, not cookies, not cake, bread. I no longer have the great kitchen with a vast expanse of counter space and double ovens, but I'm still at it. The coronavirus epidemic and lockdown has given me the opportunity and encouragement to try baking experiments that I'd never done before. And it's an interesting thing to try, so it's been fun. Here's an example. When we closed up the house, we got rid of about 30 years of old issues of Gourmet magazine. So we went through there and we tore out recipes of things we might like to try sometime. So I have a notebook filled with those. Right now I'm trying some crackers. You know, things like...
From scratch?
From scratch, right,
Wow.
right.
Wow.
So I'm, one that was a recent success was mustard cheese crackers.
Wow.
The favorite of everyone for crackers are his rosemary crisp, which are use fresh rosemary.
Yeah, steel rosemary from out there.
Roll out very thin and bake and have salt on them. They're wonderful, addictive.
They sound wonderful.
Yeah. We've enjoyed vacation travel to foreign countries. Those around the Mediterranean coast, particularly Spain, France, Italy, where we spent at least a year and a half off and on, Croatia, Greece, Turkey, and Jordan, and also on Africa's north coast, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. We spent a bit of time in India, Burma, and China. Libya was my very favorite of our trips. The country had just opened up to Americans again. We were traveling with a group that was specializing in archaeological tours, and the archaeologist who was with the group had been doing digs in part of Libya when Americans were told to get out. And he was with us. That was fun. Along the coast, you have palm trees and you have gardens there. But once you get into the Sahara, it is sand dunes with different kinds of sand. That was one of the most interesting things for me, to see the different kinds of desert that we experienced. So
There were great flat areas with fist-sized boulders covering the sand. People looked at it and said, "This looks like pictures we see from Mars." But along the coast, the Romans grew wheat there.
Did they? Okay.
So I mean, it was an agricultural area, and still is to some extent. Yes.
we visited at Libya, we visited stunning Greek and Roman archaeological sites and really wonderful stone carvings in the Saharan desert of crocodiles and antelope and other savanna kind of animals done over 8,000 years ago.
We've lived at Still Hopes for almost 4 years now, and we're so glad we moved here at the right time in our lives. We can still maintain connections with old friends and institutions and organizations in the Columbia area, and it's been a wonderful experience for us.
We've joined several good friends who have moved here earlier, Bernard and Betty Manning and Kay and George Heimbaugh. But we've made many new friends in the Still Hopes community, and we expect to see more of our old friends who will be moving into the new building that's currently being completed.
My name is Rich Crozier. I'm the chaplain here at Still Hopes. I've been here 3.5 years. It'll be 4 years on Halloween, roughly. And like I tell everybody, this is my costume. So, and the funny part is, now that we've been wearing masks for several months, I haven't seen anybody give out candy. We say trick or treat and nobody gives out candy. So I was born and raised in San Diego, California. I'm a lifelong Episcopalian and a native San Diegan, which is kind of strange, I guess. I left San Diego in 1981 when I went to seminary above Chicago at Seabury Western Theological Seminary, and never went back. Finished my seminary time in 1984, was ordained, and I've served churches in New Mexico, Texas, and South Carolina before I went in the military, and really traveled. Joined up to see the world, and they sent me to Riverside, California, 90 minutes from where I grew up. That was strange. But from then on, it was off to the races. Served all over the world and loved it. I still have friends that are serving and doing great things. In fact, one of my classmates in the orientation course from 1993 was just named the new Deputy Chief of Air Force Chaplains. He's going to be a Brigadier General, and he will retire as a Major General. And Randy, I'm praying for you. He's had a great career, and I guess he'll be the last one in our class to retire, because the rest of us are all enjoying things, and he's still wearing uniforms and deploying all the time. We love you, Randy. Been a priest for 35 years. I'm a retired Air Force chaplain, it'll be 5 years in December since I retired. Hung up all the uniforms and haven't touched them since. Yay. Let's see, I served the Coast Guard for 6 years as an enlisted guy, in the Army for about 1.5 years, and then the Air Force starting in 1993. And the way that came about, the Bishop for the Armed Forces called me one day when I was serving a church in Chester, South Carolina. And he said, "Rich, we need to talk." I was like, "Okay, Bishop, I'm listening." He goes, "Sit down." I was like, "Oh no, nobody tells you to sit down." And he said that there's an active duty full-time slot in the Air Force, and he wanted me to take it, that I had been recommended by name. And I said, "Sir, I'm an Army chaplain." He said, "Oh, Rich, we can fix that." And he did. And so that let me tell everybody the whole time I was in the Air Force that I was an Army chaplain, and then I was saved, which I enjoyed. Upset the Army a lot, but had a good time there. I've been a South Carolina resident since 1987. Maintained my residency the whole time I was with the military and gone. So thought they were going to maintain those roads that I wasn't driving on. I don't know. And it's funny, I'm 64 years old, and now I'm starting to be able to say things like, yes, I've done this for over 30 years. I've been here for 25 years. When I was a kid, I didn't want to hear anything like that. Those people are boring. You've got too many years. And now I'm doing it. So what's the worst part about growing older? Well, you become more like your parents. All the things you swore you'd never do, you find yourself doing. It's a little sobering. It's a little scary, and you come to terms with that. So yes, I'm my parents' child. My hobbies, well, I love listening to music. I love reading. I love exercising. I do a cardio workout about 5 days a week now. Because if I'm going to try and keep up with you residents, I got to work out. You guys are amazing. I have been, like I said, I've been here since October. It'll be 4 years. I had retired from the Air Force and was sitting in my house in North Carolina, wondering what I was going to do when I got a call from a priest friend of mine who said, "Do you remember Canon Chassis, right?" I said, "Yeah, of course I do." He said, "George wants a resume." I said, "I'm retired." He said, "George wants a resume." So I sent George a resume. And I don't know, 6 months later I was here. So thank you, George. If you guys love the ministry that I do, then thank George. If you hate something, just tell me. So going on 4 years I've been here, and I can't think of anything I don't love about Still Hopes. The grounds are phenomenal. The staff and the residents, you all are just incredible. I feel absolutely blessed to come here every day. Some of the best people I've ever seen or known. Let me think, what else can I say that's interesting? Oh, I played trombone. I started in 3rd grade and went through college. I was in the band at San Diego State. Wasn't big enough or strong enough to play football up there, which is probably why I can still walk. We had a rough team. Boy, they were strong. One of our key players, I watched him play basketball. I was in the pep band. And this guy was amazing. He never quit playing through the whole game. There was one game, we were up and down the whole game, and at the buzzer, he grabbed a shot under the basket, threw a Hail Mary to the other side of the court. It went in and we won. I found out later that he was more of a baseball player. His name was Tony Gwynn. And I watched him play basketball for my time. Tony and I graduated college together. We never met, but I followed his life and career. He was a San Diego Padre his entire time in the major leagues. Won tons and tons of awards for baseball. And retired from baseball and went coaching back at San Diego State in baseball, where he got sick with cancer and died a few years ago. So that's hard when you lose a friend. One of the things that I cherish are friendships, and I have lifelong friends from my time in the military, my time in the ministry, just anywhere. One of the things that I remember hearing somebody say one time was, "Wherever I am, you have a friend." And that's what I tell people. I was thinking this morning, I have 2 older sisters, much, much older. And my oldest sister used to be very, very OCD, and Mom would cook tater tots. And one night, she cooked this big pan of tater tots, and my sister counted them all up, divided by the number of people in the family, and decided how many each of us got. And as soon as she finished that, I picked up a tater tot and ate it. Do you know that she recounted the whole tray? And so I did it again. Yes, I was the younger brother. I have just found the perfect gift for her. She's got a birthday coming up in September, and I have found a cookbook for tater tots that I'm going to mail her. Nice. Just to see if she remembers those days.
Thank you so much to our residents and to Father Rich for sharing some warm and personal segments about their lives. We really appreciate having these partnerships and these friendships, especially during this time where we are a little more socially isolated. We still want to come together and be together in a safe manner so that we can continue our warm, rich history here at Still Hopes with lots of friends and who feel like family. Be sure to check your boxes, your mail boxes. You will find there some chocolate. Since you couldn't come to us, we are coming to you with chocolate goodies that have been packaged with loving and sanitized hands. So those will be in your boxes. And stay tuned for next month. In August, we will have our third and final summer school segment of Getting to Know You. So we'll have more friends to share with you at that time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.